What's up guys, my name is Ace, and I know it's been a little while coming, but we're finally going to be breaking down the 3-round burst mod on the Kompakt 92 SMG, which I actually just covered the base guns in my gun guide series. If you guys have missed that, I will leave that link down below. But without further ado, let's dive into this 3-round burst mod. And the first main thing that this does is it affects our damage profile. And as you can see here, our damage is actually buffed across the board. However, in the first 2 damage ranges, it's still going to be a 5 to 6 shot kill to the body. Even though the numbers are slightly higher, it's not enough to change the number of shots to kill. It's primarily at a distance where it's no longer going to take 8 to 10 shots to kill, now it's going to take 7 to 8 shots. Also, our headshot damage multiplier is buffed pretty drastically with this attachment, to the point where in the first 2 damage ranges, you only need to land 1 headshot mixed in with body shots in order to reduce the number of shots to kill. So headshots actually become a lot more viable now. However, it is worth noting, with this being a 3-round burst gun, the only way you're actually going to be able to get a 1 burst kill is if you're in the maximum damage range and every bullet hits them in the head. Which, as you'll see in a little bit when we look at recoil, it's not going to be an easy feat with this at all. Now you might be wondering, what about the CHF barrel? And it turns out you actually can't use a barrel attachment combined with this, or an underbarrel attachment. Those 2 slots will be locked off entirely, but the default headshot multiplier here is quite good with this. Now what does this all mean for our time to kill potential? Well, when it comes to our rate of fire with this, as far as I can tell with my hand testing, our rate of fire within the burst is the same as the default rate of fire at 1,091 rounds per minute. However, we do have a roughly 90 millisecond burst delay. And since we're not getting a 1 burst kill unless every bullet hits the head, what this means is up close with a 5-shot kill, our time to kill potential is very noticeably slower than the base gun at 310 milliseconds. And in the minimum damage range, even though we're only taking 8 shots to kill rather than 10, we're still killing very noticeably slower than 10 shots with the full auto version of this gun. Now, if you do just land 1 headshot mixed in with body shots to get a 4-shot kill, now you at least get a competitive time to kill with this at 255 milliseconds, but that's still slower than our body shot time to kill when not using the burst mod. So this mod is not going to be helping you at all when it comes to time to kill. And when I was collecting this data, I was ready to write this off entirely, but bear with me here, it's actually a little bit better than it may look. The next thing we should take a look at are our damage ranges, since we do have a boosted range profile compared to the base Kompakt 92, and we can see that with our 5-shot kill potential, it's now about 17 meters, which is noticeably better than if we were just using the base gun. Although, like I said, we do have a slower time to kill here. Then for hardcore modes, with that damage boost, we actually do have a 1-shot kill potential to the body in the maximum damage range, whereas with the base gun, it's going to be a 2-shot kill to the body at any range. Even point blank, it's going to require 2 shots. So this does make the gun a little bit better and more forgiving in hardcore modes at least. And it is also worth noting our bullet velocity and therefore hit scan range doesn't change when using this mod. As for another improvement we see when we put the 3-round burst mod on, it actually significantly improves our hipfire spread. If you guys remember from the gun guide, the base Kompakt 92 has the worst hipfire in the SMG category, but with this mod, it now has one of the best hipfire spreads in the SMG category at just 3 degrees for our minimum spread, so it makes it a lot more viable at hip firing up close. And that's a very welcome improvement. I've actually found it is quite effective. But with that out of the way, let's get into our recoil, which I was unfortunately very disappointed to see. As you can see here, this gun climbs a ton as you're firing. It doesn't recenter between bursts, and there's a lot of unpredictable side-to-side bounce within these bursts as well, which means at a distance, you're basically just going to be guessing when it comes to these bursts, and you really have to keep yourself right up close and personal, and even then, you do have to be actively controlling your recoil more than you would typically expect with a burst gun. Usually one of the benefits of a burst gun is it makes the gun more accurate, easier to control. It's actually the opposite with this burst mod. Now, since we can't use an underbarrel grip and we can't use the recoil spring since we're using that slot for this burst mod, the only method of improving our recoil with attachments is via the muzzle attachments. So I wanted to do a comparison here, and these are the results. I was a bit surprised to find that muzzle brake was actually the worst out of these, because typically for burst guns, that's the one area where the muzzle brake really tends to shine, but not in the case of the Kompakt 92. I think that burst delay is too short for the muzzle brake to really take effect. And therefore, overall, for the first time for a burst gun, at least in this game, the compensator is your best bet on the Kompakt 92 when using the burst mod, and I would definitely recommend using that. It really needs all the help that it can get in the recoil department. And with that, that covers it for all of the important stats that are changed with the 3-round burst mod. For things like aim down sight time, sprint out time, and our mobility stats, they're all exactly the same as the base gun, so not really worth mentioning here in this video. And therefore, let's get into what I consider to be the best setup to use if you want to try out this 3-round burst mod. So with this, we have the Kepler Microflex optic, which is my preferred optic in this game if I am going to be using one, which I would recommend for this. I don't mind the iron sights on this gun, but I feel like you need that little bit of extra precision with this burst version. We're also using the compensator, which, like we just saw, gives us the best possible recoil control with this, and this gun needs all the help that it can get in that area. We have the ergonomic grip to help with ADS time, slide to fire, and dive to fire time. The infiltrator stock so we can strafe really quickly back and forth in gunfights. And then finally, the 3-round burst mod itself. And honestly, this is the only setup I would ever really consider using with the 3-round burst mod. I think it's just the best all around, and there's no attachment I would ever see myself swapping out if I'm using this particular kit. And there we go. With all of that out of the way, it's time for me to share my thoughts on this mod, because it turns out this is one of those cases where statistically, especially looking at like the time to kill and the recoil, I was thinking this is just trash. There's no reason to ever use this. The base gun is significantly better. And while that may be true, I've got to say, when I actually use it in game, I found it to be quite fun and not nearly as bad as the stats would suggest that it is. Now, perhaps I was just getting some really lucky lobbies while using this. I know at least one of the lobbies that you'll likely be seeing in the background here on Red Card. That was a nice early morning lobby, and yes, it was definitely an easy one, but this gun felt great in my hands. It was my first time actually using this in a game, and I was very pleasantly surprised, and it definitely brought back some memories of the Chicom from Black Ops 2. So if you guys haven't tried this mod out yet, and you've seen the stats and you may be kind of discouraged, please just ignore those stats, give it a shot, and see what you actually think about it. Because I do think, like myself, many people will be pleasantly surprised with how the gun actually feels in-game. Now, in saying that though, I definitely wouldn't be opposed to some improvements to this, because at the end of the day, it is statistically quite weak. And honestly, there's only one main improvement that I think would be really nice to see on this, and that is a recoil improvement. I'm not saying this gun needs to be like absolute pinpoint accurate so you can melt people across the map with it or anything, but I think it should at least recenter a little bit better between those bursts, make it slightly easier to control, because typically when you use a burst version of a gun compared to the full auto version, it's because you're able to handle your recoil better. And it's the complete opposite in the case of this burst mod on the Kompakt 92. At a distance, I would much rather just use this gun in full auto than bursting it, which is very unfortunate, and I think it would be a very reasonable change to have that recoil improved a little bit, since we are killing slower already, so you might as well be a little bit more accurate. Now, of course, these are all just my thoughts based on the stats and my experiences with this gun. And this is where I'm curious to hear from you guys in those comments down below. For those of you guys that have tried the 3-round burst mod on the Kompakt 92, what were your thoughts on this? Were you surprised to see after your experiences with it that statistically speaking, it's not a very good gun? Or does this match your experience? Did you feel like this was just worse than the base version of the Kompakt? Just let me know down below. Now, one last thing I wanted to mention, if you guys are curious about the 3-round burst mod on the XM4, that one came out a while ago, and I did cover that one in great detail as well. I will leave a link to that video in the description of this one if you guys missed that and want to check it out. If you enjoyed this one, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.